Samuel Chase, the first justice of the Supreme Court to be impeached. So Samuel Chase was a brash young Maryland attorney who got a very interesting nickname for a young man. For whatever reason, and I don't necessarily see it, but his friends took to calling him Old Bacon Face. No, I can't find an explanation for why he's Old Bacon Face. Again, he looks fine to me, but he took this in his early 20s, received this nickname. Well, what's interesting about Samuel Chase is even at this point, he had a lot of energy and kind of a foul mouth and was one of those people who would kind of rebel to absolutely anything. Lucky for him, there was a rebellion brewing, and the American Revolution gets stirred up. Now, he actually gets sent to the First Continental Congress, and he's a little bit radical for someone to be sent to the First Continental Congress, but he signs the Continental Association and the boycott against British goods. He keeps going back to the Continental Congress and eventually gets to sign the Declaration of Independence. Yes, Samuel Chase. His name is on the Declaration of Independence. Now, he stays in the Continental Congress for several years, but in 1778, he has some shady business practices. He uses insider knowledge that he gets from the Continental Army and his place in the Continental Congress to essentially corner the flour market in Maryland and monopolize it. And at a time when insider trading was absolutely fine, pretty much everyone in Congress was doing it, the fact that he cornered the flour market and was charging prices that were way too high for a wartime economy, it just didn't fly, and it really wounded his reputation. He was removed from the Continental Congress. He went back to private life for a few years. Once the war ends, he gets back in the good graces of his community, and he's sent to England to negotiate with the Bank of England regarding stocks that had been purchased before the Revolutionary War, and the repaying of debts to loyalists who lost their belongings after leaving America, as well as Americans getting their debts paid by loyalists. And he apparently does a really good job with this, because he comes back and he's named a judge in Baltimore. He actually becomes Chief Justice of the District Court for the city of Baltimore, and then a Chief Justice of the Maryland Court. So just 12, 13 years after being kicked out of his job for being a little shady, he's now Chief Justice of Maryland's Court. Also, as an always rebel, when the Constitution was being ratified, he was an anti-federalist. He argued vehemently against the United States Constitution. However, the Constitution gets ratified, so he jumps on board with George Washington and becomes a real strong pro-administration party member, which was essentially the name the Federalist Party took on under George Washington. He supports Washington enough where in 1796, George Washington likes what he's doing and appoints him as an Associate Justice of the Supreme Court. He is approved. He starts sitting on the United States Supreme Court, again, during the Washington administration, though just as John Adams is arriving. And this isn't a big deal until Thomas Jefferson becomes president, because Samuel Chase, Jefferson didn't like the Whiskey Rebellion and how they were treated. He certainly didn't like the Alien and Sedition Acts, and well, Samuel Chase tried some of these people, and as I said, the Democratic Republicans didn't love this. So Thomas Jefferson claims that Chase had acted indecent in some of his discussions. Now, this wasn't really true. This was really an attempt by Jefferson to, well, ruin Chase's career and get him out of the way. So Samuel Chase becomes the first Associate Justice of the Supreme Court to sit for an impeachment trial. And he actually was impeached by the House of Representatives, but as we've learned all too much recently, the getting impeached by the House of Representatives means you go to trial in the United States Senate. And he did. So we have a Justice of the Supreme Court being tried in the United States Senate for indecent acts as a justice. And, well, the person who presides over an impeachment trial is the President of Congress, aka the Vice President of the United States, who at the time was a man named Aaron Burr, who was just a few months removed from a duel with Alexander Hamilton and technically a fugitive on the run from New York State. So, Aaron Burr oversees this trial, and by all accounts, Burr does a great job. I mean, Burr was a great politician and a very good legal mind, despite what we historically might think about him. And by all accounts, Burr runs the trial impartially, and after all is said and done, Chase is acquitted of all wrongdoings because he argues, and his defense attorneys argue successfully, that every single decision Chase had ever made on the court was done based on precedents that were previously established either in the federal courts or state courts, or even before that in the British courts. So Chase returns to his position as a justice, not being great to Thomas Jefferson for the next several years, until he passes away about 6 years later of what I understand to be natural causes. Now, the impact of Samuel Chase's career is astounding. Not only was this a signer of the Declaration of Independence, who 30 years later is getting tried in the Supreme Court, but the idea that a justice of the Supreme Court cannot be removed from office for what the Declaration of Independence would call light and transient causes is extraordinarily important. And we still have that today, where the Supreme Court does have their security from simply being cast out of their job anytime a new political party comes into power. So that is an extremely brief overview of the life and times of Supreme Court Justice Samuel Chase.